Star Wars. The Mandalorian is retconning Star Wars.
How do you feel about them retconning Star Wars, chat?
Yeah. What are you guys thinking? I'll tell you what I think. I'm pretty fired up about it, to be honest with you. I am not a big one on retcons, but this one effing needs to be retconned, my friends. So we are not talking about retconning the original series. Yes, it was a little clickbaity, what I've been saying up till this point. Just wanted to get you all riled up. They are retconning the sequel trilogy. I said it. I predicted it many months ago. Maybe it was a couple of years ago. I predicted that that's how they were going to do it when they saw that this was just blowing up in their face and the Mandalorian was doing well. And after seeing the Mandalorian, I said, wow, they are really honoring the original Star Wars. And it takes place just 5 years after Return of the Jedi. I said, you watch. They're going to use it to retcon. They're just going to continue forward. They're going to stay in this time frame for a while and do prequels and stuff in this time frame leading up to where The Force Awakens happens, and then they're just going to overwrite it. And sure enough, we've seen the first evidence of that this season in The Mandalorian.
So Auditor Dredd is asking, how are they going to do this?
Okay, so let me tell you the evidence that we have so far. Okay, so in the first episode of this season of The Mandalorian, they were talking about the destruction of the second Death Star. Remember, this takes place 5 years after Return of the Jedi, and this information is filtering out. The Death Star has been destroyed. The Empire, is in chaos. The New Republic is taking over, right? And we've had all kinds of Easter eggs referring back to the original trilogy, the prequels, and so forth. A lot of callbacks to Clone Wars and Rebels, and I will get to that in a moment. More than their fair share of that. It's getting ridiculous. But when they talked about the destruction of the second Death Star, they showed it being destroyed. And there's no throne room being thrown clear. It was completely destroyed. And in a tweet, a fan asked, I don't remember who it was, hey, what's this about? There was no, and they said, well, we were doing this to match Return of the Jedi. And they said, but this creates a discrepancy with whatever that last movie was, Skywalker, the Rise of Skywalker. And there has been no response about it. The inference being, yep, it's a discrepancy with the sequel trilogy. We were honoring the original trilogy. So in other words, going forward, it is their intent to follow the original trilogy and that continuity, and they don't really care so much about the sequel trilogy. So I do want to, at this point, I want to address something that somebody brought up in the Professor Geek group. Somebody said, hey, what about Ahsoka Tano? Actually, it was Sound Engraver who brought it up. She said, in the last movie, Rey hears all the voices of all the previous Jedi, and one of the voices she heard was Ahsoka Tano. Does that mean Ahsoka Tano is dead at the time of the Rise of Skywalker? And I would say, yes, it absolutely does mean that. However, I'm going to say that doesn't really matter so much because that whole future, I think, is being overwritten by the Mandalorian. In fact, I'm going to drop another article here. This one is from Deadline. They have Lucasfilm has specifically stated that Leslie Headland series is set in an alternate timeline. So I suspect that this whole Leslie Headland thing, there's contractual obligations and they have to go forward with, giving her series, but they're going to say, they're going to relegate it to an alternate timeline. Now, they haven't explained exactly how that's happening, but they are absolutely confirming there are alternate timelines for the Star Wars universe. And I think we're going to find out, as I predicted many months ago, that The Mandalorian is going to overwrite the sequel trilogy. And somewhere down the line, they may decide to do an alternate sequel trilogy. Or not. Either way, they're going to overwrite it. That's all that's important to me.
Mm-hmm. Now, this was they had made a mention about the Death Star wreckage, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So again, let me if I wasn't clear, because my head isn't entirely clear. If you remember your sequel trilogy lore, and most of us try to forget it, it's important to remember that the Emperor's throne room actually survived the destruction of the Death Star, and it crash landed on whatever the F planet it was, and they had to, find the MacGuffin that leads them to the MacGuffin that they could hold up, and find the throne room that contained another MacGuffin to find some other piece of junk, that led them to whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And every fan in the world was like, how is this, still around? That Death Star was destroyed. We saw it destroyed. It was blown to atoms, Well, it's just whatever. It's the Force. It's whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they showed it to us again in The Mandalorian. They showed footage of the Death Star being destroyed, and it was pretty much it wasn't obviously the same footage, but it was clearly referencing what we saw in Return of the Jedi, where it just blew up, ba-boom, and there was nothing left of it. There was no flaming piece that went flying towards the planet or anything like that. They made their statement about it on Twitter. They were pretty clear. We were tracking and following the continuity of Return of the Jedi. Draw from that what you will. I tend to take that as we're fans. We're writing it the way we want to. And again, speaking to the whole Ahsoka Tano thing, you know how Dave Filoni feels about Ahsoka Tano, right? He had nothing to say about The Rise of Skywalker. The Rise of Skywalker, J.J. Abrams, under Queen Kennedy, is erasing the past, right? And that includes whatever Lucas created and whatever Dave Filoni created. That Dave Filoni didn't want that to happen. He didn't want his, Mary Sue to be, killed off. So her future, I think, is still unwritten as far as Dave Filoni is concerned. Now, I know that the professor is going to be bothered by that, but I'd say that's a decent price to pay to retcon the entire sequel trilogy.
Now, Auditor Dredd had a question for you, though. Do you think they'll retcon the sequel trilogy as an alternate timeline?
Yeah, I absolutely do. They're still talking about, there's still grumblings and rumors going around about that whole Veil of the Force thing. I am not prepared to take that strong a stand that specifically about that. That is one option they have open to them, this idea of time travel. You know how I feel about time travel fixing things. You end up messing up more than you fix. But the idea that there are alternate timelines out there, I can deal with. Especially if they don't get into the specifics of explaining how and why.
Now, I had my own thoughts on this whole situation. Want me to let him rip?
Go for it. It's your show. I've monopolized you long enough.
Well, no. I'm just going to say that my theory is as to why the Mandalorian is contradicting Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker is that the makers of The Mandalorian did not actually watch The Rise of Skywalker. They figured this was 2 hours and 22 minutes of their life they wouldn't get back. And it won't make a difference what The Mandalorian takes place. That's me being extra cynical tonight.
No, I you might be putting too fine a point on it. I'm not entirely certain that it's that true. I mean, they probably did see it. I would go so far as to say they saw it and don't care. I think Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau are see themselves as the heirs apparent, and they're like, okay, they think they can overwrite us. Screw them. We're going to overwrite them because we're taking over now.
Oh, I see. So they were working on The Mandalorian when Rise of Skywalker was being worked on, and they had their own ideas for something that was supposed to happen after the events of Jedi.
Yep.
And then they were doing 1,000 reshoots on Rise of Skywalker because they couldn't get anything right, and they were throwing anything at the wall that would stick. Okay. And it interfered with what they were trying for The Mandalorian.
And then the sales figures come in, and you look, just look at the marketing. Okay. The marketing does not lie. Nobody is buying toys from the sequel trilogy, and they're pumping out The Mandalorian left and right. There's 25 freaking different styles of action figures for the damn child, for crying out loud. It's ridiculous.
So obviously there's still an audience for Star Wars if they're out buying all this,
absolutely
all this stuff.
But it's all classic stuff. It's not just Mandalorian. I mean, people are buying prequel stuff. People are buying Clone Wars stuff. People are buying original trilogy stuff. They're not buying sequel stuff. What does that tell you? And that leads us into our next piece of business about Star Wars. There's going to be a lot of what do you call it? Spin-offs being proposed from The Mandalorian.
Some big ones. First
of which being a mini-series about Boba Fett. So we know that Tamara, what's his name? That played all the clones in the prequels.
Oh, I should know his name. Yes, he did the voice of Boba Fett in the special edition.
In
the special editions, yeah, his voice changed. I mean,
yeah, right.
But, yeah,
but let me look it up real fast. Boba Fett actor. Let's see. It's Tamara. What's his name?
I'll look it up.
Come on.
But
Tamara Morrison. That's it. So he's back this season in The Mandalorian, and he's playing Boba Fett. We haven't gotten to the episode where we did see him. We saw him at the end of the first episode. He doesn't have his armor. His armor was found by some Jawas, and there's a whole story what happens to it. The Mandalorian is now currently in possession of Boba Fett's armor. Boba Fett looks like for all the world, he's trying to get his armor back. He has escaped the Sarlacc. And if you see this season of The Mandalorian, you find out by inference how he presumably escaped the Sarlacc. And it sounds like he's going to be getting his own spinoff. There you go. Mr. H had his say about it. He thinks it's ridiculous. Why have another Mandalorian story? Someone that looks just like the Mandalorian. I want to slap him upside the head. He's a dumb kid. He doesn't know any better. The old time fans love Boba Fett. There is a whole legend that has come up around him. And this Mandalorian series was originally meant to be a Boba Fett series. And that didn't work out, and Kathleen Kennedy quashed that because kill the past and all of that. And the fans are going, no, we still want Boba Fett. You know, in the toy collecting community, there's a concept called the Boba Fett tax. And that means all the action figures out there have their value, but if it's Boba Fett, it's going to be more because he's Boba Fett.
How much is Boba Fett worth?
Depends on the figure. Some of them, old figures will go for at least retail price. But, some of those old prototypes, those are the most expensive things out there.
We're the one where
thousands and thousands of dollars with the firing backpack. And so
I remember that they had to take that off the market, right? Yeah.
Yep. I remember mailing away for it and getting the free Boba Fett figure that came without the firing backpack with the little explanation, we're sorry, blame Battlestar Galactica for that. That's a whole other show.
Okay. That'd be a neat story to tell sometime, though. Maybe during the holiday special. But
yeah, maybe I will.
But I like Jedi Master Zootopia. He
Yeah.
says time traveling has no place in Star Wars. I would rather Disney keep the sequels and have to wear them as a badge of shame. Well, you are wrong, Jedi Master Zootopia, because they are actually bringing time travel to Star Wars in a big way in the next special, the Lego Star Wars Holiday
Oh
Special.
yeah. I actually don't have a link ready for you
Don't
on
worry
that one.
about it.
But you know what? The official you can Google it up. There is an official Lego Star Wars holiday special coming up this season. And it involves what's her name? Mary Sue Ray. Traveling back in time by whatever means she does and visiting all the different eras of Star Wars. And I'm going to say this just smacks of appeasing the current powers that be by using Rey and the current sequel trilogy, but having her go back to the past that they want to kill off so badly because they know that's all anybody really cares about.
It's funny. I did kind of roll my eyes at the trailer for that, but it did remind me of something that Luke Skywalker really is the heart of Star Wars. Okay, in my opinion. Okay, and they are showing him. It seems like more respect than the sequel trilogy did in that special. I have to admit that.
Yeah. Nothing but an insult to fans. Absolutely, Leia plus size. Could you put up Auditor Dredd's comment real quick?
Yeah, is it the Boba Fett's one?
Yeah. And if you'll indulge me for a moment, I know we have a lot to cover, but I would like to hit this because he is bringing it up. Why is Boba Fett so popular? Okay. There is, and this is tied directly to the merchandising. You cannot separate the success of Star Wars from its merchandising. Disney needs to understand that. And I think they do because this was the biggest failure of their sequel trilogy. The toys have not sold. So it doesn't matter how popular the films were and what their profit margin was. They made zero on the licensing, and that has hurt them. Boba Fett is a perfect example of a character who had almost no screen time, but Hello? You hearing me?
No, yeah, you roboted out there for a minute. I'm sorry.
Sorry about that. So it's kind of the Jaws effect where you don't see the shark, so your mind fills in the blanks. You don't know a lot about Boba Fett, so your mind fills in the blanks, and you just can't live up to that legend, right? And a big part of Boba Fett was how he was introduced in the holiday special. The toy, the mail away from the Star Wars figures, the upcoming Empire Strikes Back, he'll be revealed in Empire, get the figure before the movie comes out, etc., etc. All we knew when we got the figure was what was written in that little card that said he was a bounty hunter going after Han Solo. Oh my gosh, what's his history? What's his background? We don't know, and it just kind of built from there. And a lot of fans were really upset in Return of the Jedi when he dies, poof, he gets punked into the Sarlacc. So everybody has assumed that somehow he survived. And there's been fan art and there's been comic books and there's been all these different stories about him getting out of the Sarlacc. Well, it's canon now, guys. The episode hasn't been released, but we know this season he got out of the Sarlacc. It's absolutely true. It's canonized. So here's to the Star Wars version of the Man with No Name.
That's an interesting point you made up. So people are already building lore around Boba Fett before we even saw him in Empire, it sounds like, from what you're saying.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And again, I'll talk more about that during the holiday special rewatch.
Yeah, that's interesting to hear.
But again, yes, we do have a Lego holiday special coming, but guys, always remember Lego is not continuity. Although it will poke at continuity. They do a good job of kind of tongue-in-cheeking that stuff.
I mean, I had some issues with the Lego Batman movie, but there was one line that I loved when the Joker says, "I'm your arch enemy," and he's like, "No, Superman's my arch enemy." because of the whole Batman versus Superman thing and how that doesn't
Yeah.
make any sense.
Right. Exactly.
So there was that, but yeah. But let's see. There's the other series that was mentioned, the Leslie Headland series.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that.
It's
I don't think anyone really does. It may or may not be in some way tied to the that High Republic thing. But look, you got to read between the lines on these things. When you read a news article, you got to say what's going on behind the scenes on stuff like this. Leslie Headland, why is she even still there? Why is Kathleen Kennedy still there? Well, presumably there's some contractual obligations there. And so they have to let them do their thing. Okay, fine. So you, Leslie Headland, she's going to write her Star Wars story. We're going to make a series because we're contractually obligated to do so. But it doesn't really affect, the real continuity. The real continuity, guys, it's The Mandalorian. It's Filoni and Favreau.
So yeah, you're not interested in this series that's supposed to be a female-driven thriller / martial arts spinoff set in an alternate timeline of the Star Wars universe.
Oh yeah, let me get all on that.